Yo, this was a video I was meaning to do for a while, but things kept coming up and it kept getting pushed back, so I think I might as well just do it. This is another video for my top 10 favourite movies, but now it's 2018, it's been another year, and it's time for another update. Some of these have remained the same, others have kind of switched places, there are some new ones, there are some kind of ones that have returned. So once again, here are my top 10 favourite movies. And the number 10 spot used to be occupied by a Cinderella story, which I felt to me was a guilty pleasure, but it's been pushed out in favour of a different princess movie, the 1980s hit The Princess Bride. I mean, there's a reason it's an 80s classic, and it's one of these films that's just ridiculously quotable. Inconceivable! You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Yeah, as I said, it's just ridiculously quotable, and I've seen it twice. I love it, and that's why it's made it onto my list now. It may even go up as goes throughout the year, but yeah, for the moment, it's at the number 10 spot. And number 9, last year it used to be the number 9 spot used to be occupied by the 2004 Thunderbirds movie, which once again was another guilty pleasure, but has been pushed out in favour of the Disney Pixar masterpiece that was Inside Out. I mean, this film got massive critical praise and audience praise. I've even heard from people that even helped them figure out their lives, and you know what? I saw it through, and like everyone else, I just think it's magical. It's one of these movies that I think you could watch it again and again and still find something new about it every single time you watch it. And you know what? Great movies can do that. Number 8. Number 8 used to be occupied by Back to the Future Part 3, but I begin to think lately that Back to the Future Part 3 is kind of just a guilty pleasure for me, which is nothing wrong with it. But since I now consider Back to the Future Part 3 kind of a guilty pleasure, and I still admit that I'm not particularly keen on Back to the Future Part 2, therefore my number 8 spot has to go to Back to the Future number 1. I mean, yeah, kind of, the second movie is technically considered better, and the third movie I have said for me is a guilty pleasure, but Back to the Future, the first one, kind of, is one of those timeless ones that even though we've kind of all passed the time periods of which it was set, kind of the 1980s and 2015, it's one of those franchises that won't be getting old for a very long time and is considered a classic. So I decided to put the first one in at my number 8 because I do actually think it's a good film. It's one that I generally sat through and thought, yeah, this is good. And my number 7 spot hasn't changed. That one still goes to the guilty pleasure Galaxy Quest. Kind of a parody of kind of stuff like Star Trek and kind of classic sci-fi. This movie just has so much fun with it. There's a reason my family watch it every single year. And you know what? It's not going to be stopping anytime soon. It's just a brilliant film. Funny, kind of action-packed, heartfelt. And it's one of those ones that's lovely. Just sit down and watch. It's brilliant. My number 6 spot last year was occupied by the 2017 hit Logan, which I do still think is a very good film, but having seen his most recent film, I've now had to change it. My number 6 spot now goes to The Greatest Showman. I recently did a review of it. It's probably somewhere in the sidebar, so if you want to go and take a look at it, feel free. But yeah, this movie reminded me why I loved musicals so much. And you know what? It's been about a week since I saw it, and I've still been listening to the songs and kind of humming them through in my head all the time. It was just a wonderful film to take in, beautiful to watch, and the songs just stick with you, and that's what I loved. My number 5 spot hasn't changed. That still goes to Hot Fuzz. Because, yeah, there are quite a lot of kind of guilty pleasure action movies. You can find quite a lot of them. Die Hard and all the rest. But this, for me, this packs so much action and so much comedy into such a small space of time. I do think it's the strongest of the Cornetto trilogy. And while it's probably not the best movie in there, you have so much fun while watching it. Kind of that you just don't care. It's magnificent. I mean, yeah, Edgar Wright directed this one, and I do think it's a brilliant film. At least I think he directed it, but yeah, I love it. Now, I'm going to have to defend my number four. My number four hasn't changed since last year. My number four is still Suicide Squad, and I've heard a lot of people bash it. And people say, oh god, that's the worst film of the DCEU. Fact of the matter is, I don't care. For me, Suicide Squad is a guilty pleasure. I rewatched it recently, and I still think it's good. I mean, I'm okay. I'll admit it's probably not the kind of the best made film in the DCEU, but you know what? I loved it. I loved it. I think each casting is really good. Kind of Will Smith, Margot Robbie, each one in there. Viola Davis, they were all brilliant. And yeah, I'm probably looking for more Zack Snyder cuts for it, or say, ooh, other versions are better, but I do think that possibly Wonder Woman is better, but as for all these people saying that, oh, Suicide Squad's rubbish, I don't care. It's a guilty pleasure for me, and I love it. And that's why it's got still maintained my number four spot. Because you know what? I love that film. Yeah, pretty much three of my top four are superhero movies. In fact, pretty much all of my top four are comic book movies. As my number three is Deadpool. Yeah, which hasn't changed since last year. Because you know what? This was, I think, the first R-rated movie I went to see. I was nervous about it, but then I saw it and it just packs. It had so much fun with itself. Ryan Reynolds is brilliant in the role of Wade Wilson, and while I while I don't think some of his kind of previous comic book movie appearances were that bad. I mean, I've only seen Green Lantern, but this was the role he was born for, and you know what? I still think it's brilliant. I mean, it's getting a sequel coming out next year, this year, which I think we're all on tenterhooks here. It's coming out in May, and I just think this was kind of a perfect character for him, and it's a great movie. It's kind of action packed, but it's gory. It's got an element of romance, but then also got a sense of revenge, and it's still brilliant. I love to watch that film through. My number two spot previously would have gone something like Guardians of the Galaxy, which I would normally kind of tie with the Avengers because I think both are strong films. However, there was another Marvel movie that came out this year that I've had to give the place to this time, and that's Black Panther. Okay, I previously gave the spot to Guardians of the Galaxy because upon watching it through, I thought, actually, this is better than the Avengers. The Avengers is more fun, but this is actually a better story. But Black Panther, I watched it through, and people are regarding it as a masterpiece, and yeah, I have to agree with them. It's a brilliant film. It kind of takes a character that we've just been introduced to, gives him kind of a quick origin, and kind of throws us straight into the action with brilliant casting. I mean, Michael B. Jordan and Chadwick Boseman are both brilliant in this film. And I do actually think it's kind of one of the strongest Marvel movies I've ever seen. But it doesn't quite make my number one spot, as once again, for the third year on the trot, my favourite movie is Kingsman. I'll admit the sequel they did last year, Kingsman: The Golden Circle, not quite as strong as it could have been, but the original I still think is one of the best action movies I've ever seen. In fact, I had so much fun with it that I actually went out and bought the comic, which I've also done a couple of videos on, but you know what? This still remains my favourite movie so far. It's had the right amount of action, the right amount of heart. It had great characters, kind of good elements to it, and I still think it's one of the best films I've ever seen. So, we'll change for 2019. We'll just have to wait and see how my top 10 list stacks up then. Till then, see ya.